Hello, how the heck are you? I think screen sharing my videos is the way forward. I really like this method of doing things. You guys will be able to see all the artwork. I will pull everything up on Discogs where everything is listed very clearly and concisely. You get to see all the images. I don't have to fumble around with records. I will show you the exact edition of the record I have so you can check it out. And my grill, my pathetic, ugly grill, will be up on the top right-hand side. So I will be there in some fashion, but it will be a tiny thumbnail, and you guys can focus on what really matters, the artwork. And enough bullshit. Let's just get into this. I've had a lot of requests to do Exciter, and I never thought I'd want to do all the Depeche Mode albums and do videos on those, but because there's just so much out there, it's so saturated with so many opinions and thoughts on Depeche Mode. But you know what? They are one of my favorite bands, so I just thought, screw it. I'm overthinking this, and I've had a lot of requests to do Exciter. And I don't know why that is exactly, but I do like this album. I think Exciter is really, really good in some ways, and I think it's pretty bad in other ways. It's kind of like a good mishmash juxtaposition of good and bad. And so I will try to illustrate why I think those things. Now, Depeche Mode, Exciter. As you can see, it came out in May of 2001, and this was produced by good old Mark Bell of LFO. In fact, let me pull that up. I'm going to pull up LFO because why wouldn't I? Ah, there they are, my beloved LFO. This is the main reason to enjoy and love Exciter, in my opinion. I think Exciter definitely has plenty of magic brought to you by this guy right here, Mark Bell. And unfortunately, he is no longer with us. But as I've mentioned before in past videos, I think LFO is the quintessential warp band. I don't think electronic dance music gets any better than what LFO did. This is Mark Bell right here. This is Jez Varley, or Gez Varley, by the way. G-Man. He's still around. He's still making music. But this is Mark Bell, producer extraordinaire. And on this first album, LFO album, Frequencies, and I will click on this, and you guys can check this out. God, I like this so much more than holding records. I can't tell you how much more I like this. This is the cover of that first LFO album, Frequencies. Definitely one of my favorite electronic albums. And LFO were very, very clear about thanking a number of groups and artists that were house music as they saw it. They defined house music in a certain way. You can actually read it here. You can't, it's too small to read. But if you had this inner sleeve in front of you, they thank the KLF, they thank Yellow Magic Orchestra, they thank Kraftwerk, and they thank Depeche Mode. Now, LFO, back in 1991, they were at the forefront of all of this intense, forward-thinking, groundbreaking, trailblazing, subversive music we called acid house and techno and electro and ambient and whatever the hell else you wanted to call it. And they were thanking bands like Depeche Mode. And I think they were absolutely right to do that. Depeche Mode is absolutely one of the most important, not just pop bands, but experimental electronic bands. I think one of the reasons why I think Depeche Mode is so popular and so revered in the industry, as they should be, is that they are in an extremely unique position of being the only band that kind of existed in this underground techno electronic world, but still broke into the top 10 and top 40 of pop music. They towed that line, that balance. Like they were very much about experimentation, but Martin Gore had the ability to write top 10 songs. And you just don't see that. It's extremely rare. And that's why Depeche Mode is so special, right? That's why we love these guys so much. They cover every base. You like pop music, they've got it. You like popular, any kind of popular music, they've got it. If you like experimental electronic weirdness, they've got that too. They've got it all. No band has ever mixed all of those disparate entities and genres and inspirations better than Depeche Mode. So that's why we love Exciter. I'm confident in saying we all love them for these types of reasons. That's why I love them. I can tell you that much. But Mark Bell of LFO produced this, and I think for me personally, this is why Exciter can be an exciting album. I think sonically, it's one of their best. The music is awesome. The bass, the mids, the highs, the lows, it's really good. Now, lyrically is a different story. Personally, I think this is when Martin Gore started taking a massive shit lyrically. This is just when he flipped on autopilot mode when Exciter came out in terms of lyrics. The lyrics are just bad. Sorry. I love Depeche Mode, I always will, but their lyrics on Exciter are very substandard. But again, it kind of adds to the allure of this album, I think, because the music is so fucking good. It's interesting. It's interesting. I would love, and I think I do have like some old promo CD of this, but there needs to be an instrumental version of this album. I think the music is far better than the lyrics. And Dave's voice obviously is awesome. That's a big reason why we love Depeche Mode too. He's got one of the most distinctive voices in all of pop music. But this album desperately needs a widely distributed instrumental accompaniment. I think musically it's just so vastly better than the lyrics. And before I get into this, I pulled this up because I thought this was interesting and necessary to talk about. They preempted this album with this single, Only When I Lose Myself, and let me find the version I have. I have a US promo of this one. I want to show you guys the actual copies I have because these are the ones that I'm familiar with. This is the one I have. Let me show you the cover really quickly here. If Discogs would work with me. Kind of a boring cover, but you get some really cool remixes of Only When I Lose Myself and some really good B-sides. Here are the labels. Nothing too exciting to see. But excellent collection of B-sides and remixes here. Head Start and Surrender are obviously the B-sides. Excellent songs in their own right. Then you get Dan the Automator doing a remix. DJ Shadow pops up to do Painkiller, which is from Ultra. That's a track from the Ultra sessions. And then Luke Slater pops up and throws down a Planetary Assault Systems remix. And then you get this person, Catalan FC. I don't know who that is. My favorite mix is the Gus Gus mix of Only When I Lose Myself. And this is a great song, by the way. I think Only When I Lose Myself is underrated in terms of Depeche Mode singles. And this was a single only. This didn't come out on an album. So they had put out a greatest hits comp at this time in 1998. And, you know, a lot of times back then, when bands would put out a comp, they would try to promote that compilation by writing a new song and having a new single. And that's what this was. It was a new single used to promote their current compilation greatest hits thing. But Gus Gus kills it with this remix. Nice long 11.5-minute remix here. The original, the only downside of this double pack, this US promo, is the original version of Only When I Lose Myself is not here. That would have been nice to have, but whatever, it is what it is. Head Start, Surrender, great remixes. Then you get Renegade Soundwave here doing a remix. And this is Danny Briate. When I say Renegade Soundwave, you know, Danny Briate was a big part of the music of Renegade Soundwave. And when he broke off from Gary Asquith, he called himself Subsonic Legacy. So when I say Renegade Soundwave, you know, that's partly true. And that's what it sounds like. It kind of sounds like a Renegade Soundwave remix. And it's all the better for it. You guys know how I feel about Renegade Soundwave. Love those guys. But this is Exciter. And let me take you through the photos. I I really enjoy this album. Actually, I'm going to look at the track list here. Again, musically, stellar. Lyrically, yeah, meh. In fact, I think the singles are essential for this album. The best versions kind of exist on some of the remixes. Dream On is a single. I'll get to that in a minute. Remixes are really good. A solid song. Shine, very cool song. Sweetest Condition, yeah, I don't know. Sweetest Condition kind of reminds me of Sweetest Perfection a little bit from Violator. A little bit. When the Body Speaks, that's okay. It's kind of a ballad. Dead of Night, I think, is the weak spot. That's Depeche Mode doing their whole glam stomp thing. That was never my favorite, but musically, it's very cool. Free Love, not my favorite single. I Feel Loved is a great song. I think that's arguably the best song on the album. That's where, in my opinion, Mark Bell really comes through. You can hear his influence. I think if you took the vocal away, it could easily be an LFO track. It's a hard, pumping dance song. And this yielded a lot of really cool remixes. Breathe, Easy Tiger is an instrumental. Goodnight Lovers was also a single on that. That's a pretty cool song, actually. It's just a slow ballad type of thing. Depeche Mode likes their ballads. I think when you look at the collection of these songs, I think a lot of Depeche Mode fans will agree this is not their greatest lineup of tracks. There is some filler here, I think. I think Free Love's kind of weak. Uh, I Am You's actually pretty good. But I thought Sweetest Condition and Free Love were kind of weak. Again, just an opinion, all right? But generally, I just don't think this is their greatest moment, but it is very cool. It's just one of their strangest albums, I think. I think they were still trying to find their footing after Alan Wilder left. The album before this, they brought in Tim Simonon from Bomb the Bass. He did a great job, I think. And then they brought in Mark Bell. And they've kind of done this with every album. They bring in an outside producer to help them realize their sound, their approach. And let's go through. I'm pulling up, this is my edition. I have the original 2001 UK vinyl edition of this. And so this is what my copy looks like. These are the inner sleeves you're looking at right now. Or is this the gatefold? I can't remember. Well, these are the inner sleeves, yeah. These photos here, I think, are part of the gatefold. Got a couple of printed inners. Get some lyrics, as Depeche Mode would often offer, and then you get the labels. It was nice that they've spread this out onto 2 discs. This came out in 2001. So, this is kind of part of an era where a lot of record companies were just not putting a lot of vinyl out anymore. And wow. Here's a cool feature of Discogs that I actually played a part in, by the way. I want to toot my own horn. You can check out a sales history of certain items. That's right. I used to work there, and I had a hand in creating this whole system. Wow, look at this. Now here's some prices. This is probably going to bore people. I'm just quelling my own curiosity here. Wow. Huh. I think mine's in pretty good condition. Wow. That's well, there you go. I think they reissued this, didn't they? Why are people paying 100? Well, I guess they have to have that original press. I understand that, actually. Most repressings are dog shit, and unfortunately, that's just a truism. Let's look at the singles. Let's get into some of the fun of this. This was the first single, and I have this also as a double pack US promo. I'm going to pull that one up because that's what I've got. Or maybe I just have this one. Is it this one? Yeah. I think I have the promo and this one. Here's the cover for Dream On. Oh, you get some really nice remixes here. I think Dream On's a really good song too. It's a solid track. And this was the first single from the album. Of these remixes, I think the Bushwacka mixes are excellent. Both of these. Bushwacka was one of those late 90s, early thousands tech house guys. I don't know if he's still around, but these are really good remixes. The Dave Clark remixes are really boring. I've never been a fan of Dave Clark. I've always thought his music is pretty fucking boring. Again, just an opinion, but never a fan of Dave Clark. I just thought his stuff was just techno by numbers, no soul to it. Not a big fan. There's Kid 606. I've mentioned him before in past videos. Kind of was a glitchy guy. His remix here is all right. And then you get Depth Charge here doing a remix, or Octagon Man. He recorded under Octagon Man and Depth Charge. When he did Depth Charge, it was more down tempo stuff, which I'll have to do a Depth Charge video at some point. And when he recorded his Octagon Man, it was more electro. This guy, J. Saul Kane, is a star. If you don't know this guy, fucking awesome. His music was stellar. And then a Bertrand Bergelot remix of Easy Tiger. I'm probably mispronouncing his name, but so what? French guy. He made a lot of electronic lounge music. I have a couple of things from him, and if you don't know that name, you should definitely check him out. But this is a great single. I really liked this single at the time. I still do. I think it's aged very well. The remixes are good, with the exception of the Dave Clark remixes. My channel. Free Love. Now, I have two versions of this. I have this. I have a UK promo of this. These remixes are pretty much shit. I don't like this song, and I don't like these remixes all that much. If I had to pick a favorite, it would probably be Powder Productions here. Deep Dish was all right. Josh Wink is astoundingly overrated, in my opinion. I've never been a Deep Dish, or I've never been a Josh Wink fan. See what I mean? It went back to here. Why? I didn't leave the webpage here. I never did. Thanks, Discogs. Idiots. So, let me go back to the other version. I have a US promo of this as well. Let me find that. There you are, you sucker. And it's got the exact same, that's right, it's got the exact same tracks on here. I have a version, there's a B-side. I think actually, what is the B-side to that single? I can't remember. I almost said Easy Tiger, but that's on the album. I do have some other... Oh, this is it. I have the regular 12-inch for this. Zen Station, that's what I was thinking of. This has the better remixes. The console mix is good. This mix is pretty good, and then Bertrand comes back here. These are much better remixes. Adam TM shows up. Uwe Schmidt. You need to know Uwe Schmidt. This has got the much better remixes on it. I would avoid the Deep Dish, Josh Wink, I don't know. Those are just throw your hands in the air, early thousands era, throwaway trance nonsense. Not my thing. I don't think it's aged all that well. Here's another. I think this was the. See, these aren't in the order as they were released. Goodnight Lovers was the last single from this album, and this is the one I've got. This is on Red Wax. Yep, this is definitely the one I've got. It's got the sticker. It's got a poster. And by the way, Mute put all these singles out in a box set. It's got a green cover. So if you want all these singles, you don't need to bother to go buy all these individual singles. You can just go buy that box set. And I think it's still in print. If it's not, it's easy to get if you really want it on vinyl. These mixes are really cool. Electronic Cat, Ison, I'm not sure how to say that, but I really like these guys. These guys had a couple of years in the late 90s, early thousands where they did a lot of great stuff. Ison, how do you say that? Really love those guys. Yeah, I had an intense love of those guys for a couple of years. Tons of bands back in that time period had that kind of glitchy electronic pop, dream poppy sound or whatever. Ison, Lonnie Puna, Console was one of them, Solvent. A lot of good stuff to be had there. Christian Klein, anything on city center offices, really. Ulrich Schnauz would fall into that category. So I Feel Love. This got released on all kinds of different formats, as you can see here. Multiple promos. This had Danny Tenaglia mixes on it. I'm going to pull up this US one, maybe one of the UK ones. I mean, they just promoted the shit out of this single. I Feel Loved. And I thought the US edition was a pretty good representation of all the mixes. You don't get all of them, but you get each remixer representing themselves in some degree here. Almost all of them. You get Danny Tenaglia. He did a bunch of remixes of this. Chamber, Thomas Brinkman. Um, who was the tech? There was a tech. Is it Umek? There was a techno guy that did a remix that was not on this U.S. edition. There's Dirt, the B-side, which is actually pretty good. I thought Dirt was. I mean, it's a cover version, but I thought it was better than a lot of the album tracks. But I guess they're not going to put a cover version on the album. That makes sense. Let me find, as I fumble through Discog's archaic sorting system here, let me find. I want to say there was a UK edition. It was limited and it had an Umek remix on it. Slightly different cover. Um, is this the one? Yeah, there it is, Umek. This is a cool mix. Just straight up techno, all of these are. And that's what I Feel Love needed, I think. It's a techno song, really, and it needs that kind of energy. And Umek brought it. I think arguably Umek does the best mix of this. Good stuff. I think the best single from the album, absolutely. It's just a great song. I think Mark Bell is all over that single. He does a great job of representing what he did so well here. And those were the four singles from the album. But back to the album here. As I mentioned before, I don't think it's their best work, but I think it's one of their most unique works. It's an album that kind of exists in its own air. In the Depeche Mode catalog, it stands alone in its sound and its delivery. It was released at a certain time in history where a lot of that tech house and straight up techno was very mainstream. I'm talking about the very minimal stuff. It did have a moment where it sort of broke through and was popular, more popular than it's ever been, or it had been at that point. And I think Exciter's a really good album. It's grown on me. I didn't love it when it first came out, but it's grown on me in very tiny, infinitesimal increments over the last 23 years that it's been out. It's a good album. It's not perfect, but it's interesting. Again, Depeche Mode were kind of trying to find their footing, and I think they've since, I don't know that they've lost their footing, they just don't really care anymore. I think their last couple of albums have proven that. They're just sort of on autopilot now. They don't really care. They make music now just so they can have some new stuff as they go out on tour. The majority of their new music, I think, is just fodder for their tours, really, and I've talked about that before. But I think Exciter's pretty cool. It's one of a couple of albums in their entire catalog that I think has grown on me significantly since it came out. I was listening to it the other day, and I do like it very much, but I will say again, I think I like it a lot, and this was the case when I first heard it. I like it a lot because of Mark Bell. Not so much about what Martin Gore writes or how Dave Gaughan's voice sounds. I think I really like it because of Mark Bell. It does kind of sound like an LFO album in a lot of ways. Take the voice away and you've got a pretty solid LFO album in some ways. That's Exciter. That's what I have to say about this album. And what do you think? Is this one of your favorite Depeche Mode albums?